People talk about salvia like it's just a quick legal high, a few minutes, in and out. But those minutes can feel like forever. Some say it's like stepping out of reality itself. Scientifically, Salvia Divinorum works different from almost every other psychedelic. The main chemical, salvinorin A, doesn't touch the same receptors as LSD or mushrooms. It locks onto kappa opioid receptors in the brain, the part tied to pain, emotion, and how we process reality. That's why the trip hits like a shockwave, instant, intense, and often terrifying. Users describe it as slipping between dimensions, losing their body, or watching their life split apart like broken glass. It lasts only minutes, but those minutes can feel endless. These are real stories from people who tried salvia and came back unsure if they ever really left. I watched myself grow into a tree for 20 years. So my friend and I decided to give salvia a try. During my trip, I clearly remember a sudden change in my friend's room. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a calm, nature-filled scene. It was incredibly peaceful. That's when I realized that I wasn't myself anymore. I had turned into a young tree, and I have to admit, I looked pretty cute as a sapling. But the idea that I was stuck as a sapling forever hit me hard. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I could only watch myself as a sapling. Right then and there, I found myself compelled to observe my own growth into an adult tree. It felt like an incredibly long time. No, it was a long time. It seemed like 20 years. I was powerless, unable to communicate or take any action. All I could do was look around at the ever-changing colors of the trees nearby. After 2 decades, I slowly started to hear a familiar voice. I shouted, and my friend told me to shut the fuck up, although I couldn't see him. He eventually tapped me, and in an instant, my whole world snapped back into place. My friend was there, engrossed in watching Markiplier, which was the voice I was also hearing. I asked him what had happened, and he casually said that I'd been lying on his bed for about 5 minutes making moaning noises. I thought he was joking, but he swore it was true. I recounted my surreal experience to him, but he just laughed, apparently not quite buying my story. I don't care if nobody believes me, bet your ass I'm not trying that shit again. I feel so sorry for trees now. Has anyone had this happen to them? Where time seems so much slower. 1,000 lifetimes, long post. I come home from working a 12-hour day, a killer Sunday brunch shift where I managed, in good spirits as usual. My new roommate who reintroduced me to LSD says that she just got some salvia in the mail, and maybe we should all try it. I was going to be off the next day, so I tried to be the big boy and vouched to go first. I sit down on the couch facing the TV, which was off just a big black rectangle in my field of vision, and the white wall. We debate whether to use a pipe or bong. I said, fuck it, use the bong. The bag said 10 times, but I have to imagine someone either fucked up the bagging or I just did way too fucking much. I loaded up what I would say was a full bowl. I had no idea. She didn't tell me that the 3G bag she had cost over $100. To me it looked like shit, and I was already underestimating what would happen. I take a huge rip with a small torch, and the whole bowl disappears almost instantly, and I have a glass screen so I know I didn't lose any. I held it for probably 25 seconds, and then I fell straight to my left, off of the couch, and onto the floor. I'm 6'6" and 260 pounds. All that follows is happening while I'm apparently rolling around on the living room floor for less than 3 minutes. The experience starts with the last thing I saw, the TV. I call it the frame, black and void. I slip down into the couch and feel my face become 10,000 replicas like a flip book, but you're just letting the pages fly away as you fall. Then, I have no face. I have no body. I have no eyes or hands to touch anything with. I am now fully aware that I am consciousness. I know this because I heard, or maybe even saw the word in front of me. In this state, I am about the size of a bean, perfectly oval-shaped, and I feel smooth but not hard, almost like a gel cap with liquid inside. I am now on the machine. I am being held by something that looks like a long, slender metal rod, with a scoop that cradles my bean of consciousness. I feel myself no longer falling, sliding, But now I can tell I am moving forward like it's a big Ferris wheel, but not a fun one. I can't stop it or slow it down, and it starts moving faster. I am now seeing the black frame of the TV again, a black rectangle. Now the crazy shit really starts. Imagine your head is placed back against a wall. In a millisecond, you are propelled from one side to the other, and when you hit the other side, your face is smashing through glass, the black void rectangle. Not painful, but you can feel it. Each time I hit this glass, I enter a different life. When I tell you that I lived 1,000 lives, I'm not joking. I feel like I'm older than time itself now. The ones I can remember very clearly was going from childhood to full 45-year-old man. I'm nowhere near 45 now, and dying of cancer in a hospital. I legit remember watching my kids grow up and having a wife. I cried and laughed and loved people and felt every bit of it. My name was David. My name is not David. I was a prehistoric man. I hunted small animals. I ate vegetables. I had people around, but we didn't talk. I remember trees and grass and rocks and a mountain. I was a large black woman in one life. I don't remember much, but she was pretty and had a very loud voice. I remember my bedroom with yellow wallpaper with diamonds printed on it. I had an old white car with cream-colored seats. 1,000 of these happened, and between each one, I smashed through the glass black void, feeling my face hit hard glass and hearing the break and shatter noises like a movie sound effect. Everyone felt like a lifetime, and at the same time they were instantaneously beginning and then over faster than you could blink. At some point I heard a voice. I heard laughter. I remembered that I didn't want to live these lives. I wanted to be back with my girlfriend, and I wanted to remember what my own life was. I somehow turned my consciousness beam to the left, and I felt a bad presence. It was making me see all of these lives. It was making me endure this machine. I want it off. I'm now looking to the left and I can see the frames, alternate lives, flipping past me, and I realized that I didn't have to live through them. I could just watch them pass by. I wanted to find my own frame. Suddenly I have hands again, or at least fingers, and I can touch the frames and look at the image. It felt hard to do this. It felt desperate. I had no coordination. I was just touching as many as I could. I heard another voice. I hear more laughter. Good laughter. Then I find my frame. I grab it and put my face into it, like how else would you get into it? No glass smashing this time. It feels like goo, like gel. It's clear and smooth, but I feel like I can't breathe. I feel my arms and my face come back. I can swim through the goo. I pull myself through what feels like 100 yards. I feel like I'm 100 feet long. I can see light in the void. I can see a face. I can see my living room. I grab the edges of the image and pull myself towards it, and it feels like I squeezed my face through a big butthole. And then pow W. I hear a snap. I hear my friends say my name, my actual name. They sit me on the couch. I'm back home. I take a few minutes to figure out if it's real or not, and then I started crying. I felt like it wasn't real. I felt like I had been gone too long. I felt like I betrayed my girlfriend for living other lives for so long. This was about 2 years ago now. When it happened, I became depressed for about 4 months. I didn't feel like I belonged in this world anymore. I wasn't sure any of it was real anymore. I felt like work was trivial after I'd already lived and died 1,000 times and they were so quick. Why did I have to do this anymore? I never really told anyone until now how I felt on the inside. I couldn't tell my girlfriend that I felt like life was pointless or possibly fabricated, that I believed I actually went into some other dimension and bent time itself. After 2 years, I wish I could go back to the same place without fear and confront it all once more, but I don't think I could ever try it again. There's a feeling I get in the back of my neck that tells me not to, or I'll be smashed through glass for another eternity by something that feels the need to punish me for taking everyday moments for granted. Please start small. Don't be a fucking hero. I realized that I had some depression to deal with, and this helped me come to terms with it in a sense. I realized how much I love the frame I'm in now and don't want to be a guy named David or a fucking caveman. I haven't had a good psych trip since that. I get the back of the neck feeling when I try other stuff, or even get too high on herb. Maybe it's a good thing. I chilled out a lot since then. Problem is that I almost believe that when I die, I'll have to go back on the wheel forever. Maybe we all will. Maybe that's the cycle. Enjoy your precious moments, folks. This life is important and unique. I have a video of me rolling around on the ground. If enough people want to see it and made it to the bottom of this post, maybe I'll put it up, but it's pretty fucking stupid, and I wish I could edit it to not show my face. TLDR, fucking Salvia man. This is 100% true, and it will stay with me forever. Pure, desolate terror. Firstly, I should say that I'm not new to drugs, though I'm hardly a veteran either. I've had extensive experience with good old Scottish mushrooms over the years, old pointy-headed pals. More recent experience with crystal MDMA, not sure what you guys call this, active ingredient of ecstasy, as I understand it. Really positive each time. And one experience with liquid LSD, accidental but wonderful, probably a one-off. As I say, all of these have been really positive experiences, and everyone has given me something beautiful to take away with me. Salvia, I'm sad to say, was somewhat less positive. I acquired a 10-gram bag of ordinary leaf through the internet. A friend, who studies various forms of shamanism, had talked about it. I've been meditating deeply recently and have felt all of my previous trips to be spiritual experiences, rather than just for fun. I'm also a fairly cautious, responsible, or so I thought, adult. In other words, I thought I could handle it. I was wrong. My first few experiences using a pipe were very mild. I experienced a tugging sensation down and leftwards. The third time, I had a vague sensation of being at the bottom of a flight of stairs, encouraging someone at the top to join me. The person at the top of the stairs turned out also to be me. All of these attempts required a great deal of smoking, enough to make me choke. It should be noted that I do not smoke cigarettes. I gave up for a week or two before borrowing a bong from a friend. Once I had this, I removed all obstacles from my room, meditated to focus my thoughts, packed a large bowl, and lit up. I didn't have a minder. I only intended to take a mild trip. I took one full lungful from the bong. With the lighter held over the bowl the whole time, I held it in and barely managed to drop the lighter before all hell broke loose. I was aware of falling, in through my own mouth, and down a tunnel, fast. I was aware that the tunnel was bottomless. Looking up, the walls of the tunnel were made up of my own face, repeated infinite times, each contained within the other. Kind of like when you have two mirrors facing each other. Suddenly I became aware of the rest of the room as well. It was almost dark. The room was above the tunnel. The room was an isolated box. Outside the box there was nothing. Nothing at all. I was struck by the most visceral panic I have ever experienced. It was even worse, and I'm really ashamed of this, than when I was fighting and failing to save my late wife's life after a fatal accident several years ago. The sheer desolation was crushing, paralyzing. I'm afraid I just can't express it properly in words. My room was a box that contained all that was left of the universe, and I was rapidly falling away from it. Worse, by now something was sucking me away from it. Worse still, the lip of the tunnel, the uppermost of my faces, was collapsing, sucking my room, which was the universe, in behind me. I was aware that if I allowed this to happen, I would be responsible for the end of everything, all because I thought I was some sort of fucking spiritual voyager. I really can't express how terrifying this felt. I finally found the strength to fight against it. At first, I merely struggled helplessly, but I soon realized the only escape was back up through the tunnel. I climbed up and up. I could feel my poor grip against the walls of my throat as I climbed. Finally, I fought my way to my mouth. I should mention that my conscious body was the same size as the one I was climbing out of. I forced my hands through, pried the jaws open, and squeezed out. During this, the feel of my teeth and my breaking face were very real against my hands and body. This was only the first of literally thousands. On each exit I was wheeled around to the left. On each exit I grew more tired and more desperate. I felt I was losing the battle and the universe would be swallowed up by the imploding tunnel. I realized I wasn't quite climbing in the right way. I made one last, desperate effort. This time my real body, outside of the trip, jumped off the bed and headed for the ceiling via some shelves. Now I was aware of the real world in the peripheral vision of my trip. I struggled out of my own mouth for the final time, but this time I ended up in an entirely different tube. I struggled through this tube, plunged into freezing cold water, and climbed into another tube. This tube led to a final exit, again one which I could vividly feel with my hands, and which I now know was the bowl of the bong. Suddenly I was back in my real, singular body, and aware. I ran and switched on the light. I took the tube of the bong out of my mouth and put it down in the farthest corner of the room. I went and sat on the bed, but still didn't feel free of it yet. I realized I was still holding my breath. It took a physical effort to exhale, and then all of my concentration to keep breathing. My body was convulsing and trying to tell me I was still spinning round to the left. Gradually, I became present enough to look at the clock. I'd been gone for barely 2 minutes. The feeling of desolation didn't dissipate for another hour. I wanted to phone my girlfriend and have her come round, but at the same time I realized I was safe now, and it wasn't fair to scare her with this. Not ever. Oddly enough, several hours later, I was sound asleep and awoke next day feeling fine. This is the polar opposite to any drug I've ever tried. Everything else gave me a sense of connection with my surroundings. This sent me inwards. Everything else made me more positive about the universe. This made me question its very existence. I know this stuff sounds like a high school kid's horror essay, but that's what I experienced. The really odd things are these. My experience lasted for several hours, and yet, in the real world, it only lasted 2 minutes. It all felt 100% real. No trippy tracers, no blurriness. Real as day. I'm sorry I can't write well enough to give a better sense of how terrifying this was. I won't be taking salvia again, and it's put me off LSD too. I may take mushrooms again, but not for a while. Mostly I think I'll stick to meditation, cups of tea, and a quiet life. If I've taken one positive thing from salvia, it's this. My life with my future wife, the family we want to start, all my beautiful friends and all the cool stuff I've yet to do, all of this is more important to me than catching a brief glimpse of nirvana through the use of mind-bending substances. If salvia gave a longer trip, I wouldn't have got out. Intense and terrifying. I have had pretty extensive experience with salvia around 15 years or so ago for extracts ranging from 20 times to 80 times. I take 7.5 grams kratom 2 times daily. I have had previous experience with cannabis, a microdose of mushrooms, Hawaiian baby woodrose and morning glory seeds, a small dose of LSD, DXM, spice, diphenhydramine, alcohol, nutmeg, cocaine and crack, meth, nitrous, duster, glue, heroin, just about all opiates in pill form, Adderall, Ritalin, Ambien, benzodiazepines, and nicotine. Mental health history. History of severe depression with psychosis, anxiety disorders, and OCD, potential borderline personality disorder. Mindset before trip. I was incredibly nervous, but my mental condition was unusually good for once. Substances taken. I took 7.5 grams kratom a few hours before, about 2:30 a.m. to 3 a.m., taking the hit of salvia, 20 times extract. The kratom had taken effect by the time of the trip. I take 6 milligrams estradiol daily for my HRT regimen. I am not on any psychiatric medications for my mental health issues. The trip. I will start with the caveat that these experiences are very hard to articulate, and especially so concerning physical sensations. The kratom had started taking full effect when I decided I would pack a bowl of salvia and go outside. I loaded it about 3/4 full packed. I didn't measure it out because I'm a dumbass who went off of past experiences in which I used regular cigarette lighters. As I sat there packing the bowl, I could feel my heart beating out of my chest. I was nervous. I had had previous experiences with salvia, and none of them were bad, but it's the most intense dissociative psychedelic experience I've ever had, including high doses of DXM, 1,300 milligrams. I took my loaded bong and lighter and walked outside. I sat in a nice spot away from anything I thought I might get hurt on if I, for some reason, decided to get up during the trip and walk around. I should note at this point that I did not have a trip sitter. I sat down and decided to meditate and breathe a little to calm down and get my heart rate down. Once I felt ready, I lit the bowl with my torch lighter and ripped. As I hit the salvia, I remember tasting it and thinking, yep, that's salvia all right, remembering that unique salvia smoke taste. I sat and held the smoke in for what seemed like no time at all, and this is where it gets fun. The house I was looking at suddenly started to look weird, so I decided to release the smoke. There was none left to breathe out, and I had no idea how long I'd held it in. Suddenly, the world in front of me started breaking up into what looked like puzzle pieces. At this point, I started merging with everything and getting strong, kaleidoscopic visuals in my peripheral vision. Suddenly, I felt like I was pulled back and I was looking at the sky. Apparently, my body, which I was no longer in control of, had decided to lie down. At this point, I was shattered to pieces and ceased to exist as a human being. I was everything, but I was crammed into this infinitely tiny space, yet still being shattered into pieces. Out of nowhere, I got this sensation that I was rolling around and was being pulled around and had no control of this. All of a sudden, I started freaking out, thinking I was dying. At this point, I had no recollection that I had even taken the salvia. I was sure I was having a stroke or a heart attack, a pretty common theme to my OCD. I was feeling an intense pulsing. I was sure I was dying, so I called for help, saying, "Somebody help me." And more quietly, almost sobbing, "Somebody please help me." I'm fairly sure that what was happening is I was trying to resist the ego death. I kept getting this feeling that I just needed to let go, but I resisted. I kept hearing this phrase, and I'm not entirely sure what it was, but it sounded like, "No one knows what you're talking about," over and over again for pretty much the rest of the trip. Everything sounded distorted and broken. I'm not sure if I actually said anything, or if I did, if anything I said was coherent. No one so far has talked to me about it, so I'm guessing I wasn't loud enough or it was all in the trip. It's like 5 a.m. at this point, someone would have noticed. All of this happening while I'm rolling around, or whatever the hell was going on. I started remembering that I had taken the salvia, but I felt that it had been too long since I took the hit for me to still be feeling it. I had spent a long time in wherever I was. I was experiencing some pretty extreme time dilation. I seemingly gained some sense of control and found my way back to where I was when I took the hit, all the while spinning and rolling. I'm pretty sure it was the exact spot since my bong and lighter were right next to me. Either I had sat there the entire time or I had performed a Herculean feat in a psychedelic realm. I remember it feeling like I was merging back into myself. Maybe I was having an out-of-body experience and the whole time I was really just sitting there. The salvia gave me a moment to get myself together before it threw me back in. I was back to merging with everything around me, but I did not fear I was dying anymore. When the salvia finally gave back control, I sat there and did some deep breathing. It felt like I was being pieced back together. The first words I could speak after I came back together were, "Holy shit." I decided to get my stuff and go back inside. Still having pretty intense pink, white, and black kaleidoscopic visuals that reminded me of mouths in my peripherals that had been going on the whole trip, and everything in front of me looking like it was super close and painting-like. I couldn't find the bowl to my bong, so I grabbed my phone to use its flashlight. I noticed it was like 5:30 a.m. I went inside to grab a real flashlight and went back outside. I ended up not being able to find the bowl, so I figured I'd look later when it was light out. I went back inside. I was still tripping to some degree for another 30 to 40 minutes or so, but the most potent parts of the trip were over. I think the most psychedelic, mind-melting part of the trip probably lasted about 30 minutes, but unfortunately, I didn't even think to time it. Altogether, I think I was tripping to some degree for over an hour, maybe too high of a dose. After the trip was over, I felt super tired. and had just finished typing out the trip report elsewhere. I decided I'd go to sleep. While sleeping, I started having psychedelic dreams that were reminiscent of the trip. Even today, which is now a day later, I am having mental recollections of it, and the nap I took earlier involved psychedelic dreams. All in all, I would consider this a bad trip, but I also count it as a glowing experience, truly a making lemonade out of lemons situation. I am still trying to process the trip, and while I don't think these things impart any mystical wisdom to us, I do believe they can pull from your subconscious mind to help you learn more about yourself and how you think. I experienced ego death from Salvia 12 years ago, and I can't forget it. So in 2010, my best friend, who is no longer with us, had heard about this drug Salvia, which was totally legal, that gave you a psychedelic trip for around 10 minutes. Being the character he was, and not wanting to do things by half measures, he got the strongest version he could get a hold of, which was 120 times. The night went like our usual Saturday nights, had a few beers, and smoked a couple of joints listening to music before he busted out a brand new Slinky-style bong and this bag of Salvia. I was really hesitant at first, so, with that, and it being his idea, he went first. We turned off the music, and he took a huge hit and sat back pretty motionless with a smile on his face. After around 5 minutes, he was saying, "Higher, higher," went back into silence, and then as calm as anything, he rubbed his eyes and said, "Dude, that was fucking insane. I was on a giant toilet roll, being flung into the stars. Every time I'd land back down, it would fling me up again. I thought that sounds pretty fucking incredible, and so I took my hit. We were sat on opposing sofas, and I did what he did. Took a huge hit, held it for at least 30 seconds, and let it out. Then the world vanished. I remember seeing all of these images that I had to see, certain faces, places, sometimes just dates and times. I soon realized I had no physical body anymore. I couldn't look anywhere else, and I was essentially locked into the experience with absolutely no way out. The sense of doom I felt was unimaginable because I felt like I was dead. I had no idea who me was anymore. It was absolute ego death, and it seemed to last for hours upon hours. When I came back around, I was sat on the opposite sofa with my buddy. I apparently crawled there not long before I woke up. My friend was looking at me, and I had no idea who he was. I didn't know who I was. I kept asking, "Who am I? Who are you? Where did you come from? Where did I come from? What's my name?" I felt as though I'd woken up into an illusion. It took at least 30 minutes to fully accept I was who I was again, and even though this was 12 years ago, my mind still relives that feeling. The crux of it all is, a part of me is always concerned that the real me is still sat there on the sofa I was on, originally, and the waking up on the opposite one was me taking control of an alternate timeline, or perhaps none of this is real at all. My buddy died about 6 months later. Hey guys, I hope you found the video interesting, and maybe a little eye-opening. Salvia isn't something to mess with. Some of these stories sound unreal, but for the people who lived them, it felt all too real. Stay curious, but stay safe.